But and remind me, I don't know if you're going to get on the subject about when a senator or a state rep says, I sponsored this and I sponsored that. The word sponsored. I mean, I looked into it. You some bills are sponsored by 78 people. So and you can say I sponsored that because then your name's on there as a co-sponsor along with 80 other people.
And that process is interesting in that, let's say you're a junior member of the House, but you're an up-and-comer, and people, for any number of reasons, want you up and coming. And so, the movers and the shakers come to you and say, it behooves you to co-sponsor this bill with me. You're going to get a lot of marketing and star power out of it. Or more directly to what you just said, you can sponsor a bill simply by signing on and saying, I sponsor this. That helps it get passed, right? People see that it has broad level support. Sometimes it's bipartisan support.
Yeah.
But bragging about that back home, it's not like you had to really do anything.
Yeah,
but it does give your constituency an indication of what you stand for. Okay, so I'll give you that. But
it does. But when you say, I sponsored, say, and I'm not talking about anybody specifically at all. I'm just talking hypothetically. I sponsored 20 bills in the last term, say. Yeah, but how many did you present? How many were you, not the co-sponsor, but the primary sponsor presenter? How many?
Or worked on the legislation yourself?
You're by yourself, and and then you get co-sponsors, but you're the main sponsor presenter. And what was it for? I mean, I looked up some of the, our local legislation, our local contingent. Some of the bills that they've sponsored is like ridiculous.
Like what? Well, if you're going to bring something up, yeah, like what?
I don't have any examples, but it's sort of like one was if you're wearing a mask in public and you commit a crime, or if you're violent, you're going to go to jail. That's a new one that was presented, and I don't think it passed. But it's just like stuff like that. It's like they sit around and just think of like everybody's wearing a mask, right? This is brand new, so everybody's wearing a mask. If you happen to be out there in public and something happens with a cop, you still have your mask on. The idea was you go to jail for a year and a half. Like half the time you don't even know you have the mask on.
Wait, I don't understand. So because you had the mask on, you're in more trouble? You're
in trouble because you have more trouble. It's a separate crime. It was presented to be a separate crime because you got in trouble with a mask on.
With a mask instead of without a mask. Because it almost sounds like
it has nothing to do with the health concerns.
It
has nothing to do with why we're wearing masks.
It's the concealed nature of your face.
So evidently, when you're getting in trouble and you're getting in an altercation or something, you're supposed to take your mask off so that you don't break this other law. It's just an example of some of the stuff I'm reading is just, and most of the stuff that they do, especially during COVID, was just getting money for people who had COVID that was a prison guard or whatnot. And it's just like, if you're going to call that sponsoring a bill, I mean, you could add up, 20 of those things. And it doesn't, I mean, it's great for that one person who had to get out that was sick and, needed money to get by for 4 or 5 weeks. But, it's not why you're sent up there to create like law for the rest of us, for the whole community, for the whole state, So anyways, it's just, I wish there was more specifics about what they do up there. Instead of just making everything general, like I sponsored 30 bills and I brought home $100 million. It's like,
this is another one of those areas where you and I closely align, which is, sometimes I think it's because it's assumed that the average person won't understand, or that we simply don't care, regardless of the reason. My attitude is basically try me. I make an effort every morning, daily, as part of my morning routine before I fully get engaged in the work I'm doing, you know, I have a couple of particular, I love the medium of radio. So I have a couple of particular stations where they set separate time aside in the morning with a correspondent from Western Mass who daily gives a report of the prior day's legislative session. And when the legislature is not in session, he might talk about what's happening in the governor's council. He might give other information about what's just generally happening at the state house or in the you know, state judiciary. Yeah, like I look forward to and have, I mean, I really rely on that and have probably for at least 15 or 16 years now since I became a homeowner. So I was voting prior to that, but it's just one of those examples where,
yeah,
I think way more people would appreciate way more detail directly from their local municipal and state elected officials, and for that matter at the federal level as well. It's really kind of hit or miss, isn't it? You know, I mean, there are some legislators that I know are very proactive and have their staff really making an effort to get as much information in the hands of their constituents as possible. We don't typically have that in the Second Worcester District here.
Let me give you a real local example of how I thought, I agree with you, it's a great idea, and this is what I wanted to do. I actually reached out, this is a little while ago. I got shot down, so you'll find this interesting. I went to the Gardner News and I said, I'll write about local politics for free, so that the citizenry will know what's going on at City Hall. I can talk specifically about the city council and what the mayor's doing. I mean, I'm there. That's what I do. And and I said, you know, I can write, and I've done it before. I did it when I first opened the office up in '94. I had an article in the God News called "It's the Law," and I used to talk about a lot of it. It wasn't just about the law, but a lot of it was about local politics as well. And I did that for free too. But so the God News says, well, if you want to do that, just write a letter to the editor. That was their response. I was literally going to write a column like once or twice a week for free. I mean, it's just
now you're touching upon the whole reason why you and I are talking right now.
Exactly.
Because this podcast that our listeners are listening to, the Scots on the Rocks Politica podcast, is only one of a set of components to this initiative we have called the Media Project. In large part, because both Scott and I are deeply concerned about the lack of strong local journalism. And this is not us putting down the 2 part-time reporters at the Gardner News, but the fact that there are only 2 part-time reporters left in a regional newspaper that used to have a staff of, I don't know what, when I first moved here 16 years ago, maybe 40 people at least, 50 people.
I'll tell you,
it was a robust local newspaper.
Yeah, even 10 years ago, you had local government stories just about every single day. And I'll tell you one thing it for sure had, and this was right up to maybe 2 years ago when, I don't know if it was Gatehouse or one of the oligarchs bought the other oligarch that bought the Gardner News, and it just went away completely. But every city council meeting, we would have. So when Andrew Mansfield was here, I think it was about 2 years ago.
He's a great reporter.
He was great, but he would get like 4 or 5 stories out of the city council meeting every week. So we have a meeting on Monday. He'd have a story on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday about the city council meeting. Right. It was great. Everybody loved it. Everybody read it. That's all gone, disappeared. Like you don't even hear about city council.
Major problem. It's a major problem that we.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this.
Yeah, play our part to sort of ameliorate that problem, because it's more than just, well, people aren't getting the news. It's a facet of our republic and has been from the very beginning. It's been imperfect, albeit, but someday, by the way, we have to do an episode. I'll give you the book so you can read it, and then we'll talk about it. I have a book that is a collection of every newspaper article. Every edition of 3 of the most caustic newspapers in Philadelphia during the John Adams administration. They are the 3 newspapers that Thomas Jefferson was secretly publishing to undermine the Adams.
Yeah, they did that presidency. Back then. Every newspaper was known to be from a political party.
It's fascinating. It's a great look at the caustic times of the Adams administration, which, even though I'm a huge John Adams fan, was a very imperfect administration without Tom Jefferson's help.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it eventually, of course, led to him guaranteeing John Adams to be a one-term president. But for the people out there that think that that the modern news is, for the first time in our history, very caustic, you haven't seen nothing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Although,
Well,
but back then, so the newspapers were controlled by whatever political party owned that newspaper, and everybody knew it. So now the press tries to be, they come off as if they're neutral or, unbiased press. And we're just here to report the facts. We're just here to report the news. No. It's not like that at all. At least back then, they're like, okay, we're owned by the Federalist Party, and we hate the Democrats. So this is all going to be Federalist stuff. And it was honestly, sold that way. And if you're a Federalist, you'd buy that newspaper. And if you're a Democrat, you'd buy the other one.
That's right.
That's right. But now it's just all disguised. Although it's coming out now that we know which newspapers, like Washington Post, is lefty, Washington Times is more conservative. I mean, for example, New York Times, lefty.
Boston Herald, and they will give, but they do give an alternative side, not all the time, but sometimes, and they make a point to tell you that they are.
Who does?
The New York Times.
Well, I don't read it every day, but